Why put up with people who give you trouble and give you problems? Okay, life's too short. There's too many clients out there who like me, who want to work with us, who like what we do. Why should I take on somebody that gives me grief?
Here he is, Charles. How you going?
I'm going well, Ryan. How about you?
I'm doing excellent, thank you. So, Charles, look, let's kick in. I'm interested. Can you tell me a bit about your story and how you got to where you're at?
Sure. I'm a Midwestern boy. I grew up in Iowa. It's a rural farming state. Second largest producer of beef, largest producer of corn in the country. My family owned farms out near Iowa City, but my father was not a farmer. He was a businessman. I grew up in Davenport, which is a river city on the Mississippi, and graduated from high school, was not ready for college. Graduated at 16, worked for a while, and then I joined the United States Marine Corps. Spent 4 years in the Marine Corps, 2 years overseas, combat tour in Vietnam. Wow. Came back, was stationed in Kansas City, met my wife, married her, obviously. She had 5 children when I married her. I claim insanity, but we were married for 45 years before she passed. So it was a good marriage. Wasn't perfect. Anybody who tells you has a perfect marriage lies about other things.
I agree.
Okay. So realized that business did not value my military experience after I got out, even though I was trained by IBM as a computer programmer and systems engineer. So I decided to go to college, get my credentials, got my bachelor's and my master's degree, sat for and passed my CPA exam while still in graduate school. Went to work for Texas Instruments. Afterwards, spent 15 years in various corporations, small and large, corporate turnarounds, other things. Got a lot of great experience. Decided I was never going to run a major corporation because I didn't have the political skills. I was unwilling to stab people in the back and toss them off the ladder. So if I was going to run a business, when I grew up, my father had his own business, I'd have to start my own. So 30 years ago in last August, Ruth and I started our own business.
30 years, wow.
Here we are today, 30 years later.
Yeah, fantastic. So how did you get started with Get Payroll? Like, was it an intentional decision? Was it,
Here's what had happened. I left Penny's, which was my last big corporate job, and we got into a contract dispute and the lawyers got involved. And my lawyer knew the people over at Financial Express, which was a mobile accounting service. Okay. And they needed somebody, a COO. So I went in as COO, Chief Operating Officer. And the board was after the franchisor to get rid of the original franchise store. So I bought it. And it was a mobile accounting service with a built-in payroll service bureau. The mobile accounting lasted for a few more years, and then technology made it obsolete. And then about 10 years ago, I sold off the accounting practice. I'd gotten bored with it to my partner at the time, and kept the payroll company and have continued to expand it since then. So Get Payroll is the offshoot of that, and we do payroll all over the United States. We're a national firm and have a lot of fun doing it.
Great. And do you have a big team now?
No, there's only about a dozen of us. We're probably the smallest of the national firms, but we're continuing to grow and having a good time. We have a building just north of Dallas, Texas, but we service clients in all 50 states. And technology has gotten where you don't need as big a staff. We do more payroll with less people than we used to because it's much more technology oriented. But what we provide that our competitors don't is compliance expertise. I'm a CPA. I'm a U.S. tax court practitioner. When there's a problem, I know how to solve it. Our major competitors don't have professional tax people available for their clients. They process payroll and they produce checks. And they do a reasonably good job at it, and so do we. But when the IRS screws up or the client screws up, who solves the problem?
Yeah.
Our major competitors just go, well, call your CPA. And if your CPA really understood payroll, he'd be doing it for you already. So you're going to pay him to research and learn something that he's not familiar with, and that's always expensive.
It is.
In fiscal 19, the IRS issued over $13 billion in employment tax penalties.
Wow.
Over half of them got abated by people like me who know what they're doing because they were mistakes.
Okay. Wow. And so having a professional in your corner is essential.
You wouldn't go to tax court. You wouldn't go to court without an attorney.
No.
Why would you go to the IRS without a CPA?
Exactly. Yeah. Perfect. And so, like, who do you work with? Like, who are your main clients?
Oh, we have clients of every stripe you can imagine. Doctors, lawyers. I had a prophet at one point in time, literally a prophet. How he made a living at it, I'm not sure, but he did. Manufacturers, distributors, restaurants, you name it, dog groomers. We do it.
Wow. Okay, that's great. And the tax law, or the payroll that you run, and the tax law that kind of sits over the top of that is pretty much the same across the board.
Yeah. Now there are some unique aspects. Firms that do federal construction projects have to do certified payroll. Restaurants have tipped employees and tip credits. So there are some unique things depending on the industry. When you're dealing with a unionized company, you have union reports and filings that are unique to that union and so on. But payroll's payroll for the most part. Federal laws cover payroll are broad and cover everybody. The state laws do the same thing within the state, and they vary from state to state. So we have to be up to par on state legislation as well as federal legislation. And of course, the last 13 years have been a changing time. The laws have changed drastically. Under the Obama administration, under the Trump administration, and now under the Biden administration, they're changing again. So, before that, they were much more staid. They didn't change as quickly and as vehemently and as radically as they have been the last 13 years. So it's been a fun run.
And it's obviously important then to have someone who knows what those changes are in your corner, really. If
you're a business person, you're great at what you do. You're a great chef, you're a great dog groomer, you manufacture widgets perfectly. Well, when it comes to payroll and payroll law, the analogy I use is when I grew up, Pele was the world's best soccer player, maybe the best soccer player of all time.
Yeah.
Wonderful athlete, still alive.
Yeah.
But if you put him in a New York Yankees uniform at second base, he would be lost. He wouldn't know the game, the rules, the players, the plays, the equipment, or anything. Still be a great athlete. So if you take a great business person and you say, okay, we're going to put you at second base in a New York Yankees uniform, or we're going to put you in payroll and have you deal with the IRS, they're lost. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm the quintessential utility infielder. I know all the plays and everything else. I can play any position there, and I can deal with the IRS extremely effectively.
Which is really important because I guess we don't want to be having to deal with the IRS ourselves ever. That's
I tell my clients, don't talk to the IRS because you'll get upset and you'll say things. And here a few months ago, they screwed up on mine.
Oh.
And I got on the phone with that revenue officer. And I found myself yelling at him, telling him he was incompetent, that he didn't know the law, which he didn't, and demanding to speak to his supervisor because of COVID was not available.
Uh-huh.
And in the back of my mind, I'm going, Charles, don't do this. Calm down. Be reasonable. But when it's your taxes and your money, you get emotional.
Mhm.
And so it's not wise for clients to deal with the IRS directly. They'll do what I do and just get upset.
And that's the thing. Like when you're in that situation, you break all of your own rules. Like it's human nature.
You do. And I was embarrassed afterwards with myself. But during the conversation, I couldn't stop myself.
Well, that's funny.
And I never do that for clients. My staff just is amazed. One morning, I spent a half hour on the phone with a revenue agent from New York, a mature woman. And we talked for probably half an hour before we got down to business, mostly about grandkids.
Great.
Now, when we got down to the business side of it after that half hour, she has some discretion. Would you think she's more disposed to use that discretion in my favor or against me? I like to think she would use it in my favor. The gentleman who I was talking about my own taxes and yelling at him proceeded to do some things that were inappropriate and against IRS regulations just to get even.
Right. Yes.
And I'm not surprised that he did it. We got him reversed and we got it all fixed. And he shouldn't have done them. But I'm yelling at him and screaming at him, telling him he's incompetent, which he was, but that's not the point.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like that's also why we don't go to court without an attorney. Like
Exactly.
it's because we get emotional as human beings. And even if we've prepared ourselves to be unemotional, there's always something that pushes those buttons, isn't there?
Absolutely, those triggers are right there, and somebody on the other side will push them deliberately just to get you going.
Yeah, for sure. Charles, I'm interested. So tell me a bit about, you've obviously got a sizable business. There's a few hoops that you have to jump through to even be on this show. So, I'm interested. What's changed in you? How did you get from, I guess that startup kind of 30 years ago, through those early stages, and then into that successful situation that you are now? Like what's changed in you personally? What's happened with you on a personal level?
Sure. I was on a panel a couple of years ago, and one of the questions from these people, it was on entrepreneurial business, asked about work-life balance. And I just cracked up. And I explained that for an entrepreneur in the beginning, there is no such thing. You just work. And hopefully you have a spouse that understands that. My spouse worked with me. So we both worked incredibly long hours. The only vacations we took for the first 7 to 10 years were if I had a conference I had to go to someplace, we'd go and maybe spend an extra day, in San Diego or New York or Boston or whatever for a conference, a business conference. That was our vacations. Thank God the kids were older by then. But as we got past that stage and we hired people and I became able to delegate some of the responsibilities and have people I trusted to do things, it got to the point where life was much easier and my job became making my employees' job easy. That's really the job as a CEO, is to remove barriers that make my employees, coworkers, whatever you want to call them, associates, make their job harder. Remove those barriers to make their job easier, make them more efficient, make them more productive. That's my job. And I enjoy that job. And it's fun because my people are the most valuable thing in the business. I can't do it all myself. Not now. It's way too big for me to do it all. If I don't have people that can do the work and that I trust to do it, I'm out of business in a heartbeat. If they walk out, I might as well just lock the door behind them because I'm gone. So my job is to take care of my people and my clients, of course. They provide the revenue that allows me to pay my people to do the work and make me money. So once you start getting people, particularly in non-cost center positions, that first hire of a non-cost center position that's not bringing in revenue, but allows everybody else to bring in more revenue, is a tough one to hire. But once you've gotten past that and you've learned to do these things that bring in more revenue by making other people more productive, life gets easier and easier. You get older, the drive to success is not as important. Financial success, you learn that success is happiness. And if you're happy, you're successful. Whether you made that extra $1,000 or not, well, becomes less important. Life becomes more complacent, I suspect, but more, it just becomes easier. You become more content with things. You're not striving as difficult as you did as a youth, when it was important to make that next step, that next goal, that next achievement. Well, they become less important as you age. And you realize that being content, being happy, is far more important. And if you're lucky, like I did, you realize that happiness is a choice. You get to choose whether you're happy or not. Nobody else gets to choose that. Only you get to choose that. And if you choose to be happy, you'll be happy.
Charles, can you explain that mindset a little bit? Because I'm interested in digging a bit deeper about happiness being a choice, and also kind of, what makes you happy, and also why do you choose to be happy?
Well, I choose to be happy because being sad is miserable. Okay. I mean, who wants to be Who wants to be sad? Who wants to be miserable? Happiness makes the world brighter, more pleasant, interactions more pleasant. It's easier to laugh with you than to cry. Okay. You don't want me crying on here. And the choice to be happy is an internal one. I've read a lot on it, and a lot of the self-help books and so on and so forth over the years. I read a great deal, and I'm not unique in this by any means. And it's a matter of deciding that you are going to be content with your lot. You are going to be content with your progress. It doesn't mean you don't progress. It doesn't mean you don't be aggressive about things. I play poker. I'm a fairly aggressive poker player, and I like that. And I like to play poker. I like to win. But if I lose, it doesn't devastate me. I wish the rest of them at the table good luck and go and come back another day. I mean, I win overall, so that makes it easier too.
Yeah.
And you avoid things that don't make you happy. I don't deal with vexatious people. I cut them out of my life. I won't take them as customers. I don't have them as friends. And if I have relatives that are vexatious, I just don't see them. Why put up with people who give you trouble and give you problems? Okay, life's too short. There's too many clients out there who like me, who want to work with us, who like what we do. Why should I take on somebody that gives me grief? That makes no sense. They're not worth it. They can't pay me enough to put up with them. Now, I will admit, early on, I'd take anybody that I thought might pay me. Okay? But that's the lot of a new entrepreneur. And it's not for everybody. Some people are not cut out to be entrepreneurs. And if you're not, then go find a good, well-paying job, work 9 to 5, make a nice living, have a decent retirement, and be happy with it. It's not a bad life if that's what you want. I find myself having been an entrepreneur for so many years. The thought of working for somebody else is unhappy.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't do it. I don't even contemplate doing it. If and when I retire, and I tell my staff that they ask me about my retirement, I'm 72 now. And they ask me about my retirement. I say, one of these days, you'll come in and find me dead at my desk. I've retired.
Okay.
So,
I love it.
If I do retire, I may do part-time little diddly stuff. My father worked for Radio Shack for a while after he retired and sold his business. That didn't last long because he got real tired of working for somebody else. He went back to writing his memoirs and that kind of thing. So if I retire, I'll probably go back to, I'll write some more books. I've just published my fourth one. So
it's wow, you're fourth. It's definitely important to stay active, isn't it?
absolutely. You have to, I work out 3 times a week with a professional trainer. I'm stronger now probably than I've been in 50 years because I didn't work out for a long time. So I stay very active physically. I've been in yoga. I'm probably going back to it, some sciatica problems, but I'll probably be back in that here later this year. So it'll be 5 times a week for workouts. I read constantly. I play poker, which is, about as close as you can get to combat without weapons.
Okay.
And so that's very mentally engaging. You have to focus to be good at it. I read a lot. I'm engaged all the time.
Right. That was really good. And Charles, last question. If you could go back 5 years, or even let's make it 30 years. If you could go back 30 years to the start and give the younger you a piece of advice, what would you say to your younger self?
Invest more money.
In what?
In your retirement.
Okay.
I kid, my employees, we get big enough, I'll buy an island in the Caribbean and they can come visit me. If I'd saved enough money back then, I'd have an island in the Caribbean.
Yeah, okay. Sure. Spend less, invest more.
Yeah, that's really the key. But beyond that, you have to make a choice of what you want to do with your life. I chose to be an entrepreneur. I'd been brought up that way. My parents worked together, and I thought working with your spouse was a normal thing. It's not. It's very abnormal, but you can make it work if you try hard.
Yes.
So you've got to choose what you want to do. You have to choose your life. You have to make those choices. I made the right one in becoming an entrepreneur for me, not for everybody. I'd worked in the corporate world, and I much prefer being an entrepreneur. I much prefer taking that risk. And being an entrepreneur is risky, and you may fail, and you may fail repeatedly. But that doesn't mean it's wrong. So making that choice is the most important thing you can do as a youth, and determining where you're going to go and have goals to get there. But I caveat that. If you find you made the wrong choice, pivot.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And that's almost been kind of the, a really solid trend through COVID. A lot of businesses have been forced to pivot, to stay in business. Yeah.
Very much so.
Yeah.
Very much so.
That's good. And Charles, I'm interested, how can we get in touch with you? So if our listeners need payroll help in the US, how can they get in touch?
GetPayroll.com. My email is cjr@GetPayroll. We're on the web, so just feel free. I'll talk to anybody. So if you got a question on U.S. payroll, which I'm the expert at, if you got a question on, Chinese glass blowing, you can ask. I probably can't give you the information, but hell, we can discuss it.
Yes. No, that's great. Well, Charles, thanks so much. You've been wonderful and an absolute pleasure to talk to. Look, we wish you all the best. And if you need payroll help, please get in touch with Charles.
Ryan, been my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.